Tonight on Greater Boston, U.S. Attorney Rachel Rollins joins me as she closes in on a year in office on yet another investigation into yet another major police force in our state, where laws violated when Florida Governor DeSantis shipped 49 migrants to Martha's Vineyard, and more. Then we continue our series on the Boston Globe's five-star restaurants with the Daily Catch, a staple of local dining for nearly 50 years. Two of the brothers running the second-generation Sicilian seafood destination join me with some of their delicacies. It's been 1 year to the day since the Senate confirmed Rachel Rollins as U.S. Attorney for the District of Massachusetts, and in the years since, she's had a lot to tackle, especially the areas she vowed to focus on when she came in, combating hate and increasing equity across the justice system. U.S. Attorney Rachel Rollins joins me now. Hello there, U.S. Attorney. Nice to see you.
Always a pleasure, Jim.
How would you rate yourself in your first year in office?
It's been a little bumpy, but I would give myself a solid B. I have work to improve on, but I'm very happy with what we've done.
I know what I consider bumps. What do you consider bumps?
Well, you know, it has been like many people told me, that the difference between being a DA and the U.S. Attorney is significantly different. There are some really wonderful things, like I get to see the entire Commonwealth and have jurisdiction there. I have a civil arm now that I can work with. But, you know, there have been some situations where, you know, getting oversight and approval, I think I'm learning very well that there's a Department of Justice and I'm in a hierarchy. And so I'll be fine, but there have been some bumps.
An adjustment, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, much of your career, obviously, as I guess we're mentioning, has been about uncovering racism, anti-Semitism, discrimination of any sort. Here's some numbers, just to give people a little context about the rise in anti-Semitic incidents in Massachusetts, close to 50% in the year before you took office. When a former president dines with a Holocaust-denying white supremacist who's brought to dinner by an anti-Semite, does that not mainstream hate well beyond the borders of Mar-a-Lago?
It is deeply troubling when you see that type of behavior normalized or accepted. And I believe we need to root out anti-Semitism and hate where we see it. What I have been very surprised with, Jim, is, you know, as a woman of color, as a black person, I knew that there was violence against people of color and black people and LGBTQ community. I was shocked at how frequently anti-Semitism is woven into all of those things. So when we talk about Children's Hospital, you may be thinking about gender-affirming care or the LGBTQIA+ community or trans. We obviously are, but there is also an anti-Semitic hatred that is rooted in a lot of those threats. And then most importantly, that the doctors who are victims there, we need to protect them, but it is the actual LGBTQ community that are the victims as well.
Do you ever think you'd see a president having dinner with two types like that?
There are many things, Jim, that I wake up and see in the last year plus that I am shocked at, quite frankly, including even Kanye West or Kyrie Irving or others that are normalizing or saying things that are deeply, deeply troubling and beyond troubling, anti-Semitic and hate-filled.
Speaking of troubling, what's troubled you about the Worcester Police Department that caused you to take a look at them?
Well, this had started prior to me being there. There are allegations only of just unconstitutional policing that are happening in Worcester. We already have a consent decree or settlement agreement in Springfield, Massachusetts. So what we're going to do is we're going to really kick the tires and see what we can find with the Department of Justice. But I do want to say that we work with the Worcester Police Department every single day prosecuting cases, and we have to make sure that both sides are speaking with each other, because if we find a bad actor in the civil investigation, we have to notify the criminal side.
You mentioned the Springfield investigation. Your office and the DOJ in general concluded that investigation. I think it was the first one of its type concluded in the Biden administration. So there's excessive use of force. That's not an allegation. That's a fact.
That is a fact, yes.
There are allegations of excessive use of force, racial, sexual discrimination in Worcester. When you were the DA in Suffolk County, you put out a list of cops who, if they testify at a hearing, maybe can't be trusted.
That's right.
So a constituent comes up to you and said, okay, Springfield, Worcester, Boston, I'm a person of color, I'm a poor person. Why should I trust the police? What do you say to them?
Well, what we have to say is that although the numbers are alarming, and in Suffolk County we had over 100 on our, we called it our Brady list, our lead database, that there
list of those cops whose testimony was suspect.
Right. There are thousands of police officers in Massachusetts doing noble, exceptional work every day. We have to be better at uplifting them. I would say to that individual, we have a post commission now as a result of Governor Baker and the great work that he did with our state legislature.
That hasn't published the name of one single individual who's a problem cop, not one.
I understand that, Jim, and that is something that not in my role as U.S. Attorney can I work on, but I would say that they are getting pieces in place to make sure that we are looking at bad actors, rooting them out, and making sure that the overwhelming majority of police officers that are upstanding, loyal, noble, and culturally competent become even better.
You know, just one other bump that you didn't mention, there's also some sort of investigation into you, right?
Yes, there is.
Around you attending a fundraiser for Dr. Biden, for the First Lady. Can
Correct.
you tell us what the status of that is?
It is ongoing. And what I can say is a sitting United States Senator asked for an investigation.
Tom Cotton.
A sitting United States Senator did, and that the Office of Inspector General, of course, would, I think, comply with any sitting U.S. Senator. I am cooperating 100%. And, you know, as I said, when I tweeted, I had approval to go, but we will wait to see what they find. And no matter what they find, I will comply.
Well, you brought that up. You did tweet on July 15th. Here it is, the full thing. I wasn't asked for a comment before this, meaning the story in the Herald ran. It's almost as if the Herald didn't want to know I had approval to meet Dr. Biden and left early to speak at 2 community events, et cetera, et cetera. If you had approval, why is there even an investigation?
That's a good question.
Does this affect your, what's the answer to the question?
I guess we'll find out soon.
How, does this affect how you do your job when there's something like this is hanging over you?
Of course it does. But, you know, listen, if this were easy, anyone could be the U.S. Attorney. Jim, if this were easy, anyone could be the DA. There is additional scrutiny on you when you become an elected or a public official. Sometimes I think it's too much, but I am not here to complain. There are people in far worse circumstances than I am, and I will be fine no matter the outcome.
Can we talk about a couple of probes I hate the word probe, investigations you've initiated?
Yeah.
No, I didn't mean it for that reason.
Okay,
oh boy,
moving
that was.
on. Let's go.
Can we cut that out of the? Oh, it's live. Sorry. I know you can't tell us everything about, but just to explain to people why you initiated these things. One is, I love the term. Marcela Garcia from the Globe calls them the Vineyard 49.
Oh, I love it.
The moving of, I mean, this is me, not you. Essentially, the kidnapping, in my estimation, of 49 people, Venezuelans for the most part, from Texas by Governor DeSantis's people, shipped to Martha's Vineyard. What are you looking into? What's the issue that you're looking into? Well,
the good news is we have great lawyers like Ivan Espinosa, who is at Lawyers for Civil Rights, who has already initiated litigation. We have exceptional criminal...
Ron Sullivan from Harvard Law School said here the other night they've initiated some too.
That's right, as have Susan Church and other exceptional immigration lawyers. There are others, I believe one's first name is Rachel as well. But we have exceptional leaders that are looking into this. What I was looking at is whether there was going to be, and as the U.S. Attorney of Massachusetts, which includes Martha's Vineyard, is the DOJ going to be involved in any way, shape, or form? I reached out to my civil rights counterparts in DOJ. I did not look at Florida or Texas. I looked at the states that were receiving these individuals that were coming in, you know, and those are choice words, right, that had been brought here. There was an allegation of force or threat or coercion, essentially, when the individuals arrived on Martha's Vineyard. And I am not privy to discuss what it is DOJ is doing, but I have reached out to my counterparts in New York, in D.C., in Atlanta, and obviously Massachusetts, who have all received individuals into our communities.
Just so I'm clear, when you say I've reached out and used the past tense I was, is your office looking into some aspect of this, or you're just speaking to other U.S. attorneys?
Well, what I am doing is, and this is another example of the difference between being the U.S. attorney and being the DA. If I were the DA, even though I'm not the DA of Martha's Vineyard, I would have been out there saying we need to do the following. I have to get my marching orders from the Department of Justice. Even though this is impacting my district, this is not me looking elsewhere. They arrived here on our land, our soil. They are our residents now. I need to make sure before I make any statements that I check with the Department of Justice. So that's number one. But here are some things that we might be looking at doing hypothetically, not with respect to this. We could file a statement of interest in some of the lawsuits that have been filed in our jurisdiction or elsewhere, we could move to intervene in a case. We've done that in other circumstances. For example, Harvard University, we did that in a Title IX case recently. So I want to leave every option on the table, civilly or possibly criminally.
Is it, well, I was just going to say, is it not possible that Governor DeSantis or one of his minions broke a criminal law?
I mean, I think that we would require our federal law enforcement partners, whether FBI or some other agency, to look into that. And we have national jurisdiction, international jurisdiction. So, but I think because it involves, Jim, multiple states, Florida, Texas, Massachusetts, the District of Columbia, New York, et cetera, that it would be a DOJ issue, not a Massachusetts, right, central main justice, we call it, little no E.
Let's talk about one that is exclusively in your jurisdiction. I don't know what the status of this either. You'll tell us what you can. Everett, I mean, when you started looking into racism in high places, possibly, or whatever word you would use, in high places in Everett city government, there were a handful of cases. We talked to some of the people, including Stephanie Eber, who's done great reporting on this stuff in the Boston Globe, about racism at meetings and with city councilors. Since you announced that you're looking into this, it seems every month or so, there's yet another high-level official, almost always of color, working in the city, who says he or she, and if it's a she, it's usually gender discrimination, in addition to racial discrimination. Is that ongoing?
Yes, it's ongoing. And so back on June 2nd, I wrote a letter to the mayor of Everett, DeMaria, and told him that I was inquiring. I was asking questions based on multiple articles. I have a copy of the letter. I think we have, multiple footnotes. It is an annotated letter saying, this isn't just me saying I've driven through Everett as a, resident of the Commonwealth. This is article after article after article. And since June, you're right, we now have a superintendent that has multiple, I mean, that's a crime. Those are criminal charges against that individual. There are also sexual harassment allegations as well. Our investigation is ongoing. The mayor has counsel, as does the city, and we will be reaching out to them as well. But when the DOJ starts looking at something and more things come out, we are looking at all of that right now.
Staying on this for a second, I think I asked you the same question a few months ago, so my apologies, but it's still with me. Elected leaders in the state are not hesitant to call out racism at Mar-a-Lago, in Western Europe, in Texas. This is in Everett. And I know, well, you're in a different position because you have to allege and then whatever. Are you sort of surprised about what I would call the silence about this serial allegations about racial and sexual discrimination in Everett?
It is, Jim, speaking out against hatred and bigotry is hard, right? It's very easy. It's
not so hard if it's somewhere else.
Well, that's true, but I can tell you, if I were silent, my job would be much easier, right? As DA or as U.S. Attorney. So there are definitely people. I want to make sure I give a shout out, as you did, to the Globe and other. Adrian Walker, Stephanie Leiden has also written some articles. Right here.
She's done great work.
We need to make sure that the media has full access to things and journalists are telling stories, because but for me reading those, I would not have written the letter to the mayor of Everett.
You referenced your former job, Suffolk County DA, a couple times. I have to say, whatever I read any criticism of your successor, DA Hayden, it usually is that he's not you. That essentially there was a piece in the Bay State Banner the other day with a lawyer from the Harvard Criminal Law Justice Institute saying that he was essentially rolling back a lot of your reforms, which research suggested worked, not prosecuting low-level offenses, which, again, the study suggested reduced recidivism and that sort of thing. Do you think he's rolling back your reforms?
You know what I think he's doing? I think he's making the office his own. And Jim, I have a lot invested in that office. I feel like I gave a huge part of myself running for office at the age of 46, but I have to let go of that. And I know I have met this man. I have sat with this man. We have prosecuted cases together in the year that I have, almost a year, I have the privilege of being the U.S. Attorney. He may not be me, but he's making that office his own. And there are some really great things that he's doing there that I didn't get to do, that he's quite frankly doing better than I did. And maybe he's not doing things in the same, order that I put them in, but he has now earned the right as an elected official, not an appointed. He can do whatever it is in that office, and I know he cares about the people of Suffolk County, and I know he has good intentions because we work together every day.
Before you go, I want to go back to what you said a couple of minutes ago about your candor about virtually everybody I know who knows you, including me, when you got this job, said you're going to bristle at the constraints when you essentially were your own boss. I know the voters are the boss, but your own boss as Suffolk County DA. Actually, how hard has that been? I mean, you're a pretty outspoken, your best and worst, I would say, quality.
I agree.
How hard is that?
It's hard. It's hard. And it's not hard for the reasons I think people think, that I don't like being told what to do. That's actually not what it is. Prior to running for DA, I had been a line person my entire life. I know exactly what to do and how to report up to people. It's the lack of urgency. It is the
You just want to move.
I want to move on things. And when, as DA, I could say, we're going to do this, and it would happen. I don't mind having to check with one person, but when it requires, you know, and again, this is no disparagement of this administration. This is just the way government works. When it requires so much oversight that when you finally get the approval, you want to write back like, that was 4 months ago, thanks for that, you know, like, and again, I just, that's honestly, it's not a disparagement of this administration. And I think it's the frustration many people feel with government is that, yes, there are rules and requirements that have to happen, and I would expect that. But I think for certain communities that I took this job to help, they don't need 4 months of sort of affirmations and compliances. They need an answer, or just for somebody to show up to say, we care that the shootings have increased in your neighborhood, that black people are dying in the streets with urban violence. They need to know their federal government cares enough to show up, even if we say nothing. And that was what I was able to do as DA, and what I really want this office to be as U.S. Attorney. And we're getting there. We're getting there, right? Like, I think it's been growing pains for me, and also this administration, and I have to give credit to Attorney General Garland. He's been doing things and pushing the limits with respect to the department in ways that have never been done before, and that's why I left Jim, because I believe in him, I believe in Dag Monaco, I believe in Kristen Clark and Vinita Gupta and what they're doing, but it has been hard.
Rachel Rollins, it's good to see you.
Always a pleasure.
Thanks so much for your time.
Bye-bye.
Next up, our series on the restaurants, which earned a prestigious 5-star rating from the Boston Globe, continues. With a local mainstay that's drawn seafood lovers for 5 decades, the Daily Catch, whereas the Globe's Deborah First rates consistency is a specialty, along with Sicilian-style seafood and pasta. The original location on Hanover Street in the North End is known for giving guests an intimate dining experience where you can watch the chef flame your food just feet away from your table. And there are a couple of more locations by the waterfront and in Brookline. Joined by executive chef Basil Fredora and general manager Louis Fredora. Their father opened the first location in '73, back when it was known as the Calamari Cafe. Great to see you guys. Thanks so much for being here.
As well.
Congratulations. How many siblings are there?
7 total.
How many boys?
7 boys.
7 out of, and you're 2 of the 5. Does everybody get along?
Well, we have to.
It took you a while to answer that question.
Yeah.
And everybody's in the business, is that right?
Yeah, more or less.
Doing what? Like, what do you do?
I'm the general manager at the waterfront location.
And how about you?
I pretty much do it all.
What does that mean?
Well, you know, for years I was the chef at our locations, and now I run our wholesale operation and just keep the restaurants, you know, well-oiled machine. You know,
I'm a tad older than both of you, and the Calamari Cafe was in 1973 it opened. Calamari, in 1973, to me was squid. And almost nobody ate squid. So the conventional wisdom is your family sort of invented calamari. You hear that a lot, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Our father's nicknamed the Calamari King.
He is?
Yeah.
And what drew him to this, by the way? Wasn't it seen like as a bait fish and that sort of thing?
Yeah, it was
that
more
many years ago?
It was a bycatch mostly. Nobody was necessarily eating it, especially not in restaurants. It was more of a fisherman's food.
And what caused it to catch on? What do you think? What does your father say? Why did people all of a sudden start eating something, the name of which they hadn't even heard of much before?
Well, our father's an opportunist, and back then, fried clams were through the roof, the price.
Yeah.
And he saw calamari was just bycatch, so he was able to, bring Sicilian-style recipes and apply it to the calamari.
When you guys were, when the 7 of you, the 7 boys in the family, were little kids, were you saying, I want to grow up to be in this business? Or were you saying to yourself, I want to get away from this. I love my family, but I got to do something else? What were you saying?
No, we were all raised in this, It's in our blood. It's what we grew up doing, and at least I speak for myself, love doing it.
While I'm talking to you, I'm pretending like I'm not eyeing, one eye looking at you, one eye looking at maybe the prettiest dish of any. What is this thing right here?
That's the black pasta aglio olio.
And is this squid pasta, or what is it?
Yeah, it's a black pasta made from squid ink and with ground calamari, olive oil, garlic.
That is unbelievable. Can I take a taste of this while we're doing this?
Go for it.
And how rude is it that I'm going to eat out of a pan that probably my coworkers will... Is that okay?
That's how we all do it.
Okay, that's fine. Okay. So we have a photo of you, Basil. How many kids are named after spices, by the way?
Well, so it's me and my brother Sage.
Sage. And do you feel left out in that, or no?
No, I'm happy not being named after an herb.
Like turmeric, or that just wouldn't work?
Time would have worked out.
You've never heard that line before, have you? I'm sure you, of course you haven't. So there's a picture of you standing by a pot of the legendary sauce. We're going to put that up in a minute. What makes it so different and so much better than almost everything else?
It just comes down to using quality ingredients and simplicity.
Oh my God.
As all of our recipes. We use the highest quality ingredients and just cook them simply and let the ingredients speak for themselves.
How long does that sauce cook?
The tomato sauce?
Yeah.
24 hours.
24 hours. And could you explain to a lay person like me what is different, let's say, than tomato sauce that cooks for 4 hours? Why is it so much richer? And
so our sauce we simmer in with lobster bodies and live crabs. And so letting it just cook for 24 hours just takes that essence.
Also, my understanding is there are a ton of people beyond the 7 brothers involved in this thing, the whole family, you have a lot of workers, employees who've been with you forever. Am I pronouncing it right? Jimmy Whim, is that how you pronounce the chef?
Well, we call him Jimmy Lee.
Jimmy Lee. How long has Jimmy Lee been there?
Longer than me, that's for sure.
40 years, right?
Just about.
What's that about, do you think?
He loves it. He loves it.
Jimmy Lee is, I can't say enough good things about Jimmy. He's worked for our parents longer than both of us have been alive. And he's just a machine.
It's like a family, like the 8th brother kind of thing?
Like an uncle, and he's still going.
So I think most people that go to your places for the first time, the thing that stands out, I think, is the pan deal as opposed to a dish. What's the genesis of that? Where'd that come from?
So the pan came from out of necessity, really. When my father opened the restaurant, it wasn't like this vision he had to create this restaurant. It was, let's start cooking some food, and we'll start frying it, and we'll start sautéing it, and doing the pasta, and I got nothing to put the pasta in. So we'll just give him the pan. And that's how it all started.
And people would be disappointed if this wasn't the way it happened, right?
They come to us to eat out of that pan.
I love that. Tell me what these 2 things are here. What is that?
There we have a marinated calamari salad and then a Sicilian-style octopus as well.
Geez. And what? Oh, this is what version of the kind of bite of this? Sure.
Yep, that's the octopus there.
And where do people get that?
So these are some items that we sell in the restaurant and also available through our website, thedailycatch.com, especially for the holidays. It's a great item, for Feast of the 7 Fishes, or anytime you got a hankering for, some local Boston seafood.
Do all the 7 boys love this food, I hope?
Oh, absolutely.
Do they really, or you just have to say that?
No,
There's not one of them that said, I'm sick of this, I've been eating this for 33 years, I don't want it anymore?
I can't get
How
enough
about
of it.
Sage? What does Sage think about that? Do we know?
He loves it.
I think the calamari is his
more than
favorite.
anybody.
What is, I know that's a meatball, I don't embarrass
That is
myself. But
obviously, what kind of meatball is it?
I would say it is
one guess.
a calamari meatball.
Great guess.
It is a good guess?
Perfect guess.
Thank you. And how do I do that? Can I just take a bite of that doing this kind of thing?
Yeah.
How did you guys, by the way, I'm guessing almost everybody watching the show has been to one of your places, probably the North End. It's small, which is one of the great parts. Of course, you can't get in. It's a really tough thing. How'd you guys get through the COVID deal?
Well, we stayed open,
That's hard with limited capacity.
As much as
Wasn't that horrible?
Yeah, as much as we could with the restrictions, Social distancing didn't exist in our restaurant. We put curtains up, and we evolved based on as the restrictions evolved.
Is your father surprised? I mean, is the whole family surprised about how huge this has become? I mean, it's a big, I mean, I know you know, this is a really big deal. I mean, outside the family.
He wants it to be bigger.
He does? What does that mean? What's he looking at?
More locations, just more
calamari. Yeah.
And I assume the answer to my next question, why he wants to do that, is because he wants to spread the beauty of the cuisine to as many people as possible. But what is the deal? What's his motivation? Why does he want to keep doing?
Yeah, his motivation has always been about the calamari. He really wanted to just bring calamari to the masses. Back in the 70s, through the 80s, into the 90s, through the 2000s, now where we are now. And our mission statement hasn't changed. It's to just bring the calamari to the masses.
You know, the thing that I'm always amazed by I know you guys go to the fish piers and everything's fresh and everything's local, and I love that whole thing. I think everybody loves the whole image of that thing. But a lot of other places that do a variation of what you do, they go to the fish piers in the morning. They get the same fresh product, but I think it's fair to say, without disparaging anybody, a lot of them don't generate the same outcome that you do. So why is that, do you think?
Well, so we actually have a facility on the fish pier where we process all of our own seafood. We fillet all of our ground fish. We clean all of our calamari. It's all done in-house by these hands, literally these hands. And it just creates such a unique seafood. It's just handmade food, you know?
Can you name all 7 brothers without thinking, just saying them quickly? Go, go, go. Who are they?
Max, Basil, Theo, Sage, Sebastian, Louis, Dominic.
So I guess the answer is yes, you can do that? Is
Max,
that correct?
Basil, Theo, Sage, Sebastian, Louis, Dominic.
I guess you can. So does it make it there when the Globe says you're one of the 5 stars? I think it's great what they did. They decided not to rate restaurants during the pandemic because obviously it was a nightmare for a lot of, everybody had a nightmare through this thing, and come out with this beautiful notion, let's rate the best. What does it do for a place like yours when a place is packed all the time? What's the impact of something like that?
Well, I think it sparked the Daily Catch memory in a lot of our customers' minds that hadn't necessarily been able to eat with us over the past few years. And so it reimagined that memory of theirs and brought them back.
Can I tell you, I'm going to say it this is one of the best things I ever ate in my life, and it's also one of the prettiest things I ever ate in my life.
Thank you.
And while it's great to meet both of you, can you please say hello to Sage? Who are the other 4?
Max, Theo, Dominic.
And Sebastian.
And Sebastian. All 7, 5 of them. Will you say hi? Pleasure to meet you. Congratulations on the 5-star. Send it to your father, too. Thanks.
Pleasure, Jim.
Oh, we'll drink the wine after the show.
Yeah,
Forgot
absolutely.
about that.
We have to.
Great to see you both, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's it for tonight, but come back tomorrow for Talking Politics. The showdown over New Hampshire's first-in-the-nation primary is coming to a head. Adam Riley and his panel will dig into what happens next, plus the increasing dissatisfaction with Boston's public schools. That and more tomorrow at 7. I'll be back next week. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget Ukraine.
He's one of the best